Morten, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on BroPod here today. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me. Just came back actually from 2 weeks in the Alps pre-season camp. Pretty tough, pretty tired. So Italian pre-season is tough. A lot of running and a lot of tactics. So we have a new coach. So he has a lot of ideas and things he has to get into our heads in a very short period of time. Now next week we'll have the Coppa Italia, and then the league starts 22nd of August. We're almost there.
So we associate tactics with Italian football from the past, obviously. So how much of a session is centered around the tactical bit? Is it just running into spaces and getting a common understanding? How does that work?
No, I think it depends a lot of the coach, of course. Last year or last 2 years, we had Ranieri, of course. Claudio Ranieri which didn't have that much tactics. He was very much into like the mental aspect of the game, preparing us mentally, and also establishing some kind of structure defensively, leaving everything offensively up to us for the players to kind of figure it out on the pitch. And there's some positive sides of it, and there's of course the negative sides of it. He always was of the idea that if you're having a plan offensively, like it's very strict tactical thing, he said that your team is like a watch, and if you put sand in the watch, then the watch doesn't work. But if you're free-minded offensively, well, then you will always in the end find ways to break down the defense in a ideal world. Okay. So I think that's kind of his philosophy. And then this year we have a coach which is a bit more into tactics, both offensively and defensively. And but in general, I think Italian coaches are known to be, of course, very much into tactics. And I think there's a lot more tactics than in other leagues. Mm-hmm. And I also think there's some kind of cultural way of Italians, how they grow up learning how to play in a very cynical and like a smart way, kind of how Italians also act in, if you think of it in Italian in real life, always finding the best solution, always finding the easiest way. For them, this is kind of representing also their football playing style. So, it's just very, very interesting to be a part of. And this is my third year, and I just feel I have a lot to learn.
Oh, I can imagine. And I can also so vividly imagine Ranieri spouting that metaphor of the watch. A beautiful man. He was a big fan of yours too. How do you see your upcoming season? What are your personal goals ahead of this season?
No, of course, I'm very happy with last season, where I came out, of course, having a lot of confidence from the coach, of course, in a very important aspect, and it also made me grow a lot as a player. So, in total, in general, I'm very happy with this season. But I just see I just see that I have some weak points that I need to improve, especially offensively, in terms of creating chances and being more dominant in the offensive part of the game is, I think, for me, the most important step to make this season. Of course, I have a very good range. I run a lot, and I do the defensive work. I've become stable and very good at, and offensively, I've been more like a player who gives the ball away pretty easily, just making the easy pass. And I will continue to do that. But I think I just have to take that next step to become more interesting for maybe top clubs. I need to show a bit more offensively. So that will be the goal for this season.
Right. Well, in our last episode, we had Tony Ordinas on, who you know well from your time at Stabæk, and we got to experience how passionate he was for football and his attention to detail. But can you tell us some of your memories of him?
Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I have from him, and we didn't play that long, together. But yeah, that's the impression I have of the big one.
Yeah, it was so detailed, and it's seen the stages of development for young players in 3 main stages.
Yeah.
And the third and final stage was from 16 to 19. And he defined it by the mentality and the character of a player, how well they can transition from youth to senior football and how well they can deal with setbacks. And obviously you've came through all of that and you're doing very well now. Can you talk to us a little bit about your own mentality and how it's grown or improved?
Yeah, I mean, I've been through what you said, all I've experienced, all those phases of a career. I think being, of course, the last being coming in as a young player or leaving Norway as a young player, growing up very quickly, going to another league, a new league, being alone, handling life, finding a way to for me, the most important thing has been finding feeling that you have a complete life, trying, when you play outside your own country or you play when everything is that comfortable as you're used to, it's about finding a life that works. You have to find of course, and that makes you improve the football part as well. That's been the key for me, I think, to feel that it is not only what you do on the pitch, but only how you manage your whole life situation, actually, how everything from having social life, all these things outside the pitch, that makes you actually even more concentrated on the pitch, because of course there's work to be done and you have to do that really. But to deliver, football is such, in that way, a special sport, because you look at all other sports and then you have a long preseason or you train a long time and you have a very short space of time where you have to compete. But in football, you have 10 months of competition. And I think it's impossible to be able to be stable in that amount of time without having a good and stable life, or the platform of your life. It's in a good place. And to figure out that part is difficult as a young player, especially been for me. And then you have, of course, all the other aspects, of course, being, all the football politics that's going on, clubs. Of course, the last year in Heerenveen, when I signed in Sampdoria, I still had a half year left of my contract. So I was put down to the second team, struggling with that, finding a way to cope with that, then getting to Italy and, going to a pretty Sampdoria, which is a famous big club in Italy, from being on the second team in Heerenveen, which is a pretty big step. And I was confident on myself, but I felt straight away that I was kind of a nobody. Nobody knew me. Everybody was questioning who did they buy? Sampdoria, I didn't have any name, so I had every day to fight for that respect. And that's pretty, that can be tough also from a coach. And I had a very tough first 3 months in Sampdoria with the first coach, which only spoke Italian. I didn't speak Italian. He just overlooked me totally in every session. So it came to a point where I started to doubt myself, of course, as well. And then luckily, just in the right moment, he was fired and Ranieri came in. So, I mean, that was the turning point. I can point to, then Ranieri came in November 2019, and, I didn't play 1 minute left. And he just had the first week in training. He just let us play 11 against 11, 7 against 7, 8 against 8 for a whole week. And he just sat on the sideline, just watching. He didn't say a word. He was just watching the game.
Right.
And then the last day after this week, he came to me and he said to me, yeah, I understand the way you play. And I'm thinking how I can use you. And then the weekend I started against Spal. We were actually on relegation spot and they were in the spot over us. So it was just a must-win game. And I came in as a right winger, first game from start. And I was actually on the tribune the game before, and I came in starting the week after. And I just, there was just a moment where you just feel your whole body is just shaking. You're so excited. And we came out. We won once. It was a terrible game, absolutely terrible game. And in the 89th minute, we scored the 1-0. And I was just running constantly up and down on the right wing for 90 minutes. I was totally dead, after the game. And that was kind of that was the turning point. And after that, it's just been a upward hill. And I mean, that's the beauty of football, how it can change in a second time.
Yeah, I think we fight for those moments, you know, as footballers, with those fighting for those moments of happiness.
Yeah,
there are a lot of setbacks, as you alluded to, in especially the first 3 months, but Heerenveen, but it's those moments. And I think for people that work with football, I think they understand, but for maybe the less informed, they need to respect a lot more, like perform at the highest level. You're part of one of the best leagues in the world, and performing at that level, whether it be while playing or proving yourself as a totally unknown, it shouldn't be understated, like the mental strength that is needed for that. And it becomes obviously more and more important, but I think it needs a lot more respect than it deserves, because like you say, you are performing over the course of 9 months, right? On at your best level. And that's not easy. And then obviously you get a break with Ranieri, but I think that should be a lot more, I don't know, discussed, or at least highlighted, because it makes football a bit makes it special, because I mean, you can't if you're going to perform, you can't be in a top shape for 9 months in a row, but or you have to find a way to be able to perform every week for 9 months. And then you need to be able to switch on and off very quickly. And that's something I worked a lot on, and I'm still not where I want to be. You know, the best players, they're able to switch on and off in a second of time. And I think that's, that kind of ability, that kind of mental strength is what kind of makes a difference from a mediocre player and a top player in these leagues, because you just have to be able to do it to be able to perform for in such a long period of time. How is that process now for you? Does that include switching off in the sense that you get engaged with other commitments, like for example with WePlayGreen? Is that part of that?
Yeah, for me, that's been an incredibly important thing. And I mean, if you look at the very, very best, I think they are exceptional in the way that they can do one thing and one thing only. And I think that's for me, that's almost impossible. The way I work, as you have to kind of accept who you are. And some people are able to keep this line and do one thing, and just they're incredible in this in being able to focus and just leaving everything else out. For me, it's been kind of a way to find a way, because of course I have a lot of other interests. I am open to a lot of ideas. Football hasn't been the only thing in my life. So for me, it's been a way of finding a balance between doing all the other things I want to do and like to do, but keeping it at the level that's not too much, but it doesn't work if I don't do anything. It doesn't work either. So I have to find a balance always between these two, and that's kind of something I'm still working on and getting better on. I think that's has a lot to do with experience and getting to know yourself, and and see and just fail. Actually, the times you actually fail, you do too much. You feel that, oh fuck, now I overdid something, I did too much, I lost too much energy, this was overkill. All this, you're just learning to find that balance. But sometimes it's difficult, because sometimes you don't even feel yourself that you're actually putting the barrier a bit down, or maybe you do too much, so your level gets a little bit less without noticing. And that's happened to me many times. And then somebody, from the outside might tell you that, and you will feel, okay, no, that's not right. And then you think back, okay, maybe it's right. So I mean, that's the difficult part. Sometimes it's it's a borderline, which is difficult to detect yourself. So I'm still working on that a lot, and it's getting better.
Do you feel like when you get that balance right, that having outside interests and being passionate in outside things, when you get the balance right, do you think that can actually help your performance on the football pitch? Because obviously an easy criticism is, oh, he's distracted, or heads elsewhere. But when you have the balance right, do you think having outside tactics helps your performance in football?
Yeah, for me, I think it helps definitely. When I find the right balance, you're in balance, then I think you find where you perform at the highest level. And I feel that's a very good way for me to actually switch off from the pressure, from all the things, from the thoughts, from all the things that we know is a part of our life as a football player, because there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure, there's all these things that, for me to leave that is so important, to get that rest and to get my body to actually be able to recover and be mentally ready for a new test the day after or the week after. So I mean, that kind of aspect to actually that's a way for me to switch off and actually rest my head. And so I will definitely continue to do that. And I think you see more and more footballers actually doing it as well, because it gives them a lot of, it gives them this advantage.
Yeah. I'm just smiling because I think we, Kieran and myself, would definitely can like relate to it. And it's a hard question to answer because you haven't really made sense of it either. But I agree and Kieran, you can speak for yourself, but I need that distraction, because if I come back from training, and whether it be 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I'm not saying I love football, but I need to be filled with some additional purpose, if you may, whether it be an expectation I put upon myself to say, well, I've got all this time, let me do something else. And whether it be preparing for life after football or during, you're just thinking, I just want to make the most out of it. But at the same time, you're thinking, well, my job, so to speak, is football as well. So it's that constant like negotiation. And I just think it's funny, and it's refreshing to hear from someone else too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that when you spoke, what you said about purpose is something I also been struggling a lot with, because of course I was actually starting off when I went to Holland. I was 17, 18, and I came down. I was alone. And I remember I had a lot of time to think, and all this is a period of life where you're all kind of information, everything is just like it's very much in your emotional kind of, you're getting all the information about, you're suddenly starting to understand that, the world is bigger than Oslo, or where I played before. Before I was playing in Stabæk, I was living at home, I went to school, my life was just, was a joke, I just went from walking around. And then suddenly things get real, and then all these impressions get in. And, that was the period where, of course, I also started to read a lot about, all the environmental problems that we have. And that was when actually my environmental engagement started, was in this period. And it was a difficult period because of course I had to perform in football, but for me, just nothing made sense kind of in this period. It was like, I love football. I want to perform. I have a very strong, winning mentality. I want to beat everyone. I want to be better than everyone. But at the same time, I had the side of me which is, what am I doing? This is nothing to do with this is not important what I'm doing. We have a huge environmental crisis going on, and I'm playing football. This makes no sense at all. And it actually came to a point, I can remember the day I was just sitting down. It was like, okay, I was alone, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And my parents came down, and we had 2 days, and we just spoke about all the things I had in mind. And we came to the conclusion, at least for me, that in that time, the importance was, because I felt I want to use my life for fighting for what's important, problems that we have in society, all these things that I care about, what you spoke about, the purpose side of me, just to give my life a purpose of doing something that's greater than myself. And we just came to the conclusion that the best thing I can do for these things is just becoming as good as possible in football, and keep on speaking about these important issues. And that's kind of become, for me, a way of always going back and thinking, why am I doing this? And then I always end up thinking, okay, I see the possibilities football give me in terms of speaking about these important things, having a voice that I can speak about things. And if I can use this, I think that's something that's worth fighting for. So now I call it actually purpose-driven performance.
I love that.
So that's I think that's cool to actually also perform for something that's bigger than my individual project of becoming as good as possible. Of course, that's what I want to do, and I have huge ambitions. But that's also part of because I think that will give me just the ability to do things that's even more important.
Yeah. No, I listen. I love that, and it seems to be a good negotiation in between what you're doing and what you want to accomplish. We had Ada Hegerberg as a previous guest, and we were discussing how she was a beacon for, women's football and stuff like that. And she said, similar to you, you have to perform in order to warrant this platform. And you shouldn't undermine the fact that throughout this all, and it's been really cool to follow how vocal you've been in your foundation, which we will discuss shortly. But you've taken step by step in your career as well. And that's what's warranted this attention, so which shouldn't be disregarded, which is, and you've played more games for the national team. So full respect to you. But now that we're on to the topic, and we have you in a very nice t-shirt here with the foundation, WePlayGreen. Can you just tell us what it's about and what are the goals and objectives of the foundation?
Yeah, so the vision of the foundation is to create green change in the global football family. And when you ask why I want to do this, it's because first of all, that we need to find a sustainable way of going forward as a society and as humankind. And we love to restore our balance with nature, because we've obviously lost that, and we have huge environmental problems already. And things that will even get worse because of this, and of course and football has the advantage that first of all, it's the biggest social phenomenon in the world. We got 3.5 billion football fans all over the world, so I mean the possibilities to activate these people is huge. So the opportunities is there, and then is what we want to do, and that is to inspire the individuals, to make the individuals in the football community, to inspire them to make the changes necessary to achieve our goals. And how do we want to do that? And that's, I think, to use what inspires them, and that is the players, and that is the clubs. Those are the people that inspire the fans, because when we speak about the 3.5 billion football community, that's fans. That's people who love to watch football, watch their favorite clubs, watch their favorite players, and then we need to inspire them by using the club and the players as activators to inspire them. And we figure out we want to work with three projects, and we've came pretty long. I think I've been working on this for more than a year. And the first project is a club project where we have the WePlayGreen Sustainability League, which is a Champions League in sustainability. So we want the clubs all over the world, the best clubs on sustainability, to compete against each other on who's the best, to kind of make a ranking and try to make a competition of the clubs who's actually doing a lot of great things, to be an inspiration for all the other clubs. And I mean, we have a lot of clubs who's already doing a lot. I guess you heard about the Green Forest Rovers in England. They're doing some great work. We have a club in Norway, which is Odd, which is also having just installed a huge battery in their stadium, solar panels, vegan lunch, all these things. Bodø Glimt also in Norway, I know it's a club who's doing a lot. And I just have many examples, or I just came, when I started to read about this, I just found a lot of clubs who's doing great things, but they didn't communicate it in that well. So the league is supposed to be a place where they can compete against each other and just create awareness about clubs who's doing a lot of good things to inspire the other clubs to become better. And we have a project for the player ambassadors, or player ambassador project, where we want to make ambassador project program for the players to become a part of, so they can become and learn them how to be, or give them the tools to be activators for green change. And then we have the last project, which is a fan club, where we want to include the fans as well. and then you kind of covered up the whole football family in a way.
That's brilliant. Morten, I'm wondering, you also spend a lot of time talking to clubs and trying to get them to adopt these green initiatives, but we've done a lot of episodes talking about the commercialization of football, and ever more so in today's world, football clubs are seen as businesses almost first and foremost. And with a business, there's a lot of commercial interest, there's a lot of conflicts and a lot of stakeholders with the owners and the CEO. How hard is it? Do you come across challenges in getting them on side and, you know, getting them to adopt these green initiatives?
Yes, that's of course a big barrier for many clubs, that they have, of course, sponsors that's not interested in doing this because they're on the wrong side of the change. They have, you know, all this AI implications of, you know, there's all these sorts of things, that's because they're part of the old system and we need to change the system. But I also always say this, that's this change won't happen from top down. This will happen from down and up. And I think we have to look back on the social changes that we've been through already. Look at female rights, we look at racism, what are the changes that's happened. And you see that, you know, it starts with the ball start. When the ball starts to run, nobody wants to be on the wrong side. So we just have to keep on working to get the ball to run faster, because of course now, if you're a player, you wouldn't play for a racist club. If you're a club, you wouldn't have a racist player. If you're a fan, you don't want the club to be a racist club. And if you're a club, you don't want to have racist fans. Mm. You know, that's how things work. If you put the same line, if you put it to climate and being green and being sustainable, when do we see the change that fans actually demand their clubs to be sustainable? The clubs start to demand that the fans are sustainable. The players want to play for clubs who has a sustainable strategy of their club. The clubs want to have players who are speaking out about social issues, being, you know, representing something their values stand for. You know, when we get these kind of effects starts to roll, and now we didn't even mention the sponsors, because the sponsors, of course, a huge role. And when the sponsors also will start to pick the clubs with their right profile, the clubs will start to pick the sponsor with the right profile, then the change starts to happen. And this is happening, and it will happen, but it's just too slow. And that's what we have to speed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that, because I think it's largely a generational shift, which has been vital in terms of our generation and the one coming after, in terms of pushing for these environmental considerations, which certainly accounts for large parts of it. And like you say, from the bottom up, through grassroots initiatives or whatnot, it pushes these corporations or sponsors to consider it. And I think always the point I like to make is that, I'm just trying to make sure you're here. Yeah, there we are. Is that a lot of this supposed quote unquote wokeness from the corporations are essentially, you know, they're essentially corporate considerations. They're saying this is bad for business, but I guess as long as it's bad for business, and listen, that's the world we live in. As long as they understand that, then you know, we will have the ends by which we want to accomplish, which is ultimately a sustainable future. But it must be, that's why I'm just thinking, because what you're doing is you're lobbying, you're meeting with, you know, Italian ministers, you're meeting with these very powerful individuals, and the work that you're taking on, respect to you, because it's not a lot of players, a lot of individuals. It maybe becomes a lot of symbolic gestures, and what you're doing is actually a political endeavor. It's very tough. And it's going pretty well at that. So I respect it, and it also goes to show that athletes can have opinions on environment and political matters, even though other people might, although some people oppose that. Of course, there's been still, I think, speaking about environmental issues will always be a touch line, because it's also an economical issue in many ways. It's tightly connected with economics, which will always make it politics, kind of, in some way. You know, I never go deeply into these complications, because I know there's, you know, I would always say, you know, I'm not like, I don't have an opinion. I'm just more or less
saying what the scientist says, what what economics says. I'm just telling what other people tell me, the science. I'm just trying to get the word out and spread this awareness to more people. And I mean, of course, speaking to people that's in power, all these things you can say in one way, it's also symbolic, but the symbolic thing is also a very important thing, because that's awareness creation. And we just have to get the word out there as much as possible. We have to get it home. We have to get it. Sorry, there was a bit sound. We have to get it into all the houses in the world. And I mean, the cool thing about football is that many places where the environmental debate doesn't get in, their football gets into the houses. So I was speaking with the Italian minister, and he was very, very positive to the project, because he saw that they have huge budgets for their environmental campaigns and stuff like this, but it only arrives to 30% of the population. So you have just a huge part of the population where this information doesn't arrive. And I mean, that's the ability of football, to arrive to all different types of people, and giving it like kind of a that we're all the same, and we're all in the same place, and we want to go. We all have to change.
Pimp Society can paint on anything you want. Pimp Society is a creative outlet for both you as a customer and then me as a creator. Now you can currently go on the website, fill in a form, and then you'll get, we'll communicate through email.
Well, it goes without saying that obviously with the COVID pandemic in the past few years, our lifestyles, our behaviour have changed a lot. And if anything, the past few years has highlighted how adaptable humans can be, and how much we can overcome when we're kind of pushed to the limits. Does this give you some hope going forward in regard to the fight for climate change? And is there anything that we've learned over the past few years that we can take into that fight?
I think this pandemic has been, of course, it's been had an huge impression on us all, because we've seen how fast things can change. We've seen how vulnerable we are. All these things that we've seen, and we've kind of maybe forgotten, kind of. So I think this is a time, but still, the old structures are always trying to get back to the, we're always pushing to get back to our old habits. I mean, I'm positive in the way that you see what you said. You see how quickly we're able to change. Yeah. But I just still think the change is needed, that we need to see in terms of, when what we need to do, or to be able to create a sustainable society, is still nowhere in sight. So I mean, that's the negative side, and then the positive side is that it's starting to happen. It will happen, and the thing we just have to work on is the speed, because it has to happen fast. And that's kind of that's the we lost so much time already. So that's the kind of the point that makes it all so complicated, that we have to change so many things in such a short period of time. So I mean, it's difficult.
And I imagine the more educated, the more aware, the more informed you are about the issue. Kieran, you're big on climate as well. You have a couple of subscriptions to the New Environmentalist.
New Internationalist.
Yeah, New Internationalist. There we go.
Yeah.
Magazine.
So the more informed you are of it, the more impatient you get, because the urgency, by which it requires, and I can imagine for, and you guys know probably a fair amount more than I do, but how vital it is, and we cannot really continue to live the same lives, but it's hard to communicate, because that's ultimately what we want to do.
Yeah, and it's hard to communicate or it's not hard. It's just what we need to do is communicate on a level that gives, because that's the problem. Because of course, you have the Greta Thunberg squad, which is 10% of the population, which is there already. Already they're ready to to take the actions needed. They're ready. And then you have 80-90% of the population who's not there and need to be spoken to in a whole other way, because of course we need to start on the basics, and we need to have an inspirational and positive approach to the problem. And that will be I started, okay, that I forgot to say about the WePlayGreen is that, of course, we have these 3 projects, but the main idea is actually creating a communication platform with all these 3, where we will start to communicate all these things out, because it's just a huge communication project of getting this information out in a way that people will understand and take in. And I think that's about having a very inspirational, positive approach, and actually just showing off all the positive benefits of going through this change. And that's about showing the examples of the clubs who's already doing great things, players who's already doing things, fans that's doing things, people that's doing things that's not sacrifice, but it's something that has a positive outcome of actually going through change. And I think that's where the environmental movement has failed the last 20 years. They've been too scientific, they've been trying too hard, because of course it's difficult, because there's these huge problems and you want to communicate that and very hard and very fast, and you forget that the other part of the population which is not aware, for them this message is impossible to take in unless they have to go through a process where they actually understand it. And I don't believe that you cannot teach anybody this. It's not like you can teach somebody, because this is not about recycling your garbage, of driving an electric car. This is about a much deeper level that we need to get people on, and that's about awareness, their aware state of getting, being in a state where they actually do everything they can in their daily life to change, and that they're aware of every choice they make. That's the right thing to do, and that comes with some kind of awareness that you need to create. So that's kind of that's I think how you will manage to get people on board, and that's the way I think we have to work.
Yeah, I'm wondering how you deal with the emotion of it all, because like you said, it is arguably the biggest issue in the world right now. It's so complex. The more you read and the more you research, the more you realize how much of an issue it is, how far away the world is from solving it. And you're obviously right at the forefront trying to bring attention to it. I can imagine it can be very exhausting, and I'm just wondering how you cope, and it can probably bring a lot of anxiety at times. So I'm just wondering how you cope with that, and is there ways that you try and cope with it all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going through phases with the kind of, if you call it depressions, that's pretty hard. But the periods with negativity, and I think we all can relate to that kind of emotions that we have reading about stuff that we know isn't how they should be. And if that's things you see, that can be all sort of things. That doesn't have to be an environmental thing, but I think it's the same emotion that we understand that we are, there's a lot of stuff going on that has to change, and we have to become better. And at a certain point, I think we see that there's, we are all, you get those emotions. And I think that those emotions are important, because that creates also, that's what created my engagement and my all the things that I'm burned for, and why I'm doing this. So I think having those emotions is tough, it's difficult, but it's also good in the way that it creates actually some engagement that can be done, used to actually do something.
Yeah, it's an ever important issue, and we will reference the WePlayGreen Foundation in later on or at the end of this. Before we end it, however, we have a few questions.
It will be great to have you in. It will be great to have you in as athletes ambassadors, by the way, when I get up the ambassador program.
We're on. We're down.
Yeah.
We will join that, and we will communicate to our Scottish compatriots.
Yes,
How about that? I know, Kieran, you would love that.
Cool.
That would be brilliant, actually.
Yeah. Cool.
Before we end it, off that very high, I don't know if we can talk being given that honor, to be fair, but we'll have some football related questions, just a few ones or a couple ones before we end it. we're curious then, what player you've played against has impressed you the most? I don't know if it necessarily has to be the best player, because maybe he didn't impress you at the time.
Yeah.
You know, who has impressed you the most?
Well, I played against, in the Serie A last, like what I can remember of the game is Pjanic playing for Juve as a defensive midfielder.
No.
I know many don't see him as, he didn't play much in Barcelona now, but I mean, in Juve 2 years ago, he was really world class, and he was doing things that I thought, okay, this is next level things. Yeah. And in a way that's really cool, and the vision, all those things that you love to see and love to learn. So that's to say something that's a bit, maybe people say that's a bit strange.
Pjanic, I like that. I always liked him as well.
It's good. What is your greatest football memory?
Oh, that's also. I think it will be the derby here in the derby last year here, when we played against Genoa, and we were both on relegation, and that was last autumn, and it was full packed stadium and an atmosphere. Yeah, I never experienced before. So and we won 0 again, late goal. So that was the best memory so far.
Brilliant. And last but not least, we've discussed, and you are a very intelligent man. You seem to be a man of plan and action. Have you seen, like, can you see what you want to do after your career ends?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think somewhere definitely I will do something in the area of climate, environment stuff, and if I can combine that with sports, that would be, I think, the perfect package.
I did that. Before we say our goodbye, so to speak, remind us where we can find the WePlayGreen Foundation social media, website, whatnot.
We'll just we just launched we will launch the Instagram and the webpage, so everything is online. That was kind of a pre-launch, because the relaunch will be, I think, during this autumn. So it's just more getting that word out, seeing, now we're working hard to get like the relaunch during this autumn, September, October, I hope. So you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook, on webpage. So
brilliant.
So that's WePlayGreen.
Brilliant, Morten. I appreciate that so much for you taking the time to speak to us today. It's a delight, and we are obviously Sampdoria fans now. I was before, I appreciate you taking the time, Morten.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.